Hi, everybody. It's Cindy Cashmere at C2C Gallery, and today Stephen Kostyshyn and myself are both in our studios, and we're going to talk about Stephen's work. Stephen, one of the things I've wondered is, would you please tell me how to say your last name? Tell me how to
It's
say your last name.
Kostyshyn.
Kostyshyn. So the syllables pronounced
Kostyshyn,
middle.
yeah.
Okay, I've always wondered. All right, so as you can tell, Stephen is making, and he and I are going to just talk about his practice and a little bit about how he got to where he did and where he is currently today. Stephen is a Northern Michigan artist, and he is a friend of a friend. He's been in the gallery for about 4 years now, and Stephen started as a clay maker, but then he moved into combining a second love, which was basketry. And as you can see, he's working on a basket right now. And if you look off to I guess it's my right, you'll see a piece that is somewhat similar to the one that he's working on, which is we didn't plan that. That's an interesting coincidence. And so anyway, so the one thing I've wondered about, Stephen, is tell us how you went from being a potter, throwing on the potter's wheel, to combining these two crafts.
Well, boy, there were forms when I was a potter that I could never really achieve with clay only. So I started, you know how your wheels just get turning, and I just started thinking about things. And somewhere along my travels, I had seen the Nantucket lightship baskets. It was when I lived on the East Coast. I know you're familiar with them, but they have turned wooden bottoms and a lot of times turned wooden tops. It's maybe some scrimshaw or something on them. They make women's purses out of them. They make fishing creels out of them. So yeah, it's a traditional basketry form in our country. But I looked at that and I saw the wood and I thought, man, I can make those parts out of clay and put a whole new twist on this thing. And so, it kind of was that mini light bulb moment. And so I started just playing with two pieces, a top and a bottom piece that were separate. And boy, I remember the first one I ever wove, it took me about 4 days, and it was only maybe double the size of this piece I'm working on right now. But anyway, yeah, so the materials I used back then are pretty much the same as I use now also. But anyway, so I wanted us to make forms I couldn't make with clay only. So I started exploring, got into this, but along the process, I started to realize these things actually I can figure out how to make these so they can hold water at the same time. And of course, that's where you can see the cylinder part falls into the piece. So that's actually a completed piece of pottery, right, going straight through the center there. Mm-hmm. And, there's a bottom on it, which gives it a nice stable bottom. And that opened up a whole nother world at that point, because suddenly they became even more functional than a standard basket. You could use it as a vase. And then I kind of like to listen to what people say, what they use the work for. And that's always great to get that kind of feedback from customers, So, yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Anyway.
So I see the stack of reeds off to your left. And do you soak them, or are they're pliable enough that you don't have to soak them?
So this is called palm inflorescence. And you can see it's really kind of gnarly. This is the material that the seed pods come off the queen palm. So there's these sort of huge things draped down with thousands and thousands of the seed pods. By the time I get it, I have a friend in Florida who gets it for me. The seed pods are basically dried and gone. So I don't have to go through the stripping process. But this is a wool material. I love it because it's rustic. but it's elegant at the same time, just depending upon how you look at it,
Right.
So yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I was thinking about your hands and making the baskets. You must have really a lot of calluses. Of course, that leads into another thing that we'll talk about later. But do you initially were you like poking yourself a lot and a lot of blood on your baskets, or?
Well, I'm not going to say that that didn't happen, but it kind of depends on the material you're working with. I started out weaving with rattan, which is this material. I don't know if I can get it up
Mhm.
close enough to look at, but it's sort of flat and it's very consistent in its dimension, and when you soak it, it's very pliable. I mean, it just bends like rubber. So for most basket weavers will stop weaving with this. It's very easy on the hands, especially the fingertips. I, on the other hand, have been playing a guitar since I was like in 8th grade. So calluses are just a natural thing on the end of my fingers. I mean, you can stick needles in there. I don't feel anything. It's just, they're beefed up.
So that means you
Yeah,
can reach into the kiln when it's really hot too and pick out hot pieces of clay. um,
that has happened also. And
yeah,
I've had that ouch moment too. Yeah.
I'll bet. I'll bet. So one of the things that I know many of our clients have talked about or make comments when they were in our brick and mortar gallery is your patterns, that they're immaculate. And one of the things I wonder about is, do you like sketch an idea? Do you just have you had books where you've seen patterns and you go, oh, I need to figure this out? Like, how did you get, say, this is a uniform, it spirals around?
Well, they're actually not as perfect as you think. That's the beauty of the weaving process, because you get so lost in the in and out part of it that it all kind of levels out at the end. And today I could spot mistakes, a mile away. But when I first started looking at basketry, I couldn't even find the spot where one stopped and the other started. It's just I couldn't see it. I was, looking the pieces, I couldn't figure it out until it was pointed out to me. And then from then on, you can see it. I mean, look, you take a material like this again, look at how much thinner it is at one end as the other. And as you're going along, this is bowing out. So that those never land at the same spot all the way around. And that's by the time you get to the top, it just all works out. It's kind of fascinating that way.
So when you're making, I mean, normally you're not talking to me. Um, I know, like, I can work on the potter's wheel and talk at the same time. I mean, especially if I'm just doing something I've done several times. When you're
Sure.
making a basket, do you listen to music or listen to a podcast, or what do you do when you're working and making?
Generally, it's music for me. Yeah, I much prefer to have that, and it really helps me to pass the time, because this is something that to probably a lot of people would seem incredibly boring. After a while, you're sitting here just going like this, hour after hour. But for me, I can escape into the music. I do like podcasts too. It just depends. It just
Right.
depends on what mood I'm in or what I feel like doing. But generally, I'd say for the most part, it's yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at that piece and I'm thinking, okay, it's pretty funny that I've got a similar piece behind me. How many hours does it take you to weave a piece like that?
Well, this piece, excuse me, I don't think is the same as that tall one behind with the spiral on it. That's a pretty large piece.
It is.
This is a much smaller, tabletop. That other piece there is probably, at least that
Yeah.
much taller.
Right.
So these for me have turned into what I would call a relatively quick weave. I could weave maybe 2 of these a day, but what happens is, because this material is so rough, your fingers, even with the calluses, they start to give out. So you can actually like it's almost eating away at the callus. So what I end up doing is just, I'll do like 2 of these, and then I'll go 4 days weaving with just the rattan. So it's a lot easier on my fingers. And you know, the other thing that's really, that I love about this process is that, you know, after you've woven like, say, 40 pieces, I don't know about you, but I can start to feel like I want to do something else. And that's the beauty of when the pottery kicks back in, because that's a skill I've had since I was a young man. So I just keep going back to that wheel, and it's rejuvenating all over
Right.
these processes. And both of them are a completely different dynamic as far as your physical positioning, fingers, whatever you're, you know, whatever the process is. They're both radically different, but both equally as soothing. They both, you can get lost in it. You know that lost feeling when you throw. I mean, I know you understand that. So yeah, I mean, it takes you away. So the music for me is sort of like the traveler. It travels along with me. It's like going on a road trip every day, kind of.
Yeah.
Never thought that way, but yeah.
So as you know, a lot of times I'll have artists stay at my house when we're doing artist talks and things. And we've had workshops in the area, and I get to have artists stay at the house. One of those artists, it became really obvious to me that the way he started his day was by taking a walk. And he said he did that, and he's done it for years because it allowed him to think about the things in his life that he needed to think about, and then get him ready to go into the studio and be ready to actually work and think about his work instead of wrestling with whatever life has brought him. Do you do anything like that to you know, like organize your work week?
Well, generally, I walk daily also, but I tend to go in the evening. You know, we have such beautiful sunsets up here, and we're in these rolling hills of Leelanau County, and especially now with colors just starting to change. There's nothing like being up there on the hilltops and on a sunset and looking at that. So, and also the night sky too is beautiful. But I tend to, yeah, at least, yeah, daily take the dog on a long walk back on the property, and yeah, it's really a nice way to end my day. But to start in the morning now, it's just like kind of like anybody else. Get a couple cups of coffee and maybe get jacked up. Okay, let's go do it. You know, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Do you work every day?
Yeah.
Do you work every day, Steve?
Typically I do. I mean, obviously we're in this odd time now, so I've spent a lot more time recently doing those much needed things that needed doing on the farm here. So I've spent a lot of time into that. But yes, typically, yeah, I'm just out here all the time. And I would, you know, honestly, I would often prefer my weekends in the studio, because for some reason the phone doesn't ring as much on the weekend. It's you know, radio is good on the weekend. You know, just there's a lot of things that you can kind of ease into the weekend and have this nice relaxing time that's sort of more your own time. It feels more like my own personal time, even though it's still working in the studio. Interesting.
Yeah, there's truth to that. It's funny because I was thinking this weekend, with the weather being the way it is, I need to get glazes made while I can make it outside, you know, and it's just, you know, and it feels like Sunday's going to be the day where there's not going to be a lot of interruptions. And so I was thinking about your glazes, and one of the things that I remember when I first saw your work was I felt like your glazes worked so well with the basketry. You know, and I like the green glaze, but a lot of people love the blue. Did it take you a lot of years, and did you used to have several glazes, or how did you get to the glazes you're using right now?
So when I first started into this, I was working with some Albany slip glazes that were sort of a tannish color that wasn't very attractive. I tried it with my white glaze that I use on the interior of these. Oftentimes people think these are made out of porcelain because of that white glaze. But I tried them on the white glaze on the outside. there was just no punch. I've even taken this same mash glaze and added rutile to it and made, I don't have an example of it here, but made it a sort of a caramel color.
Right.
It just didn't have any punch to it. It just, so I kind of landed on these three. I tried a black glaze for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes people will say, "Boy, this would look so great in black." And whenever I would do black glaze, it just they sat there. They just didn't sell. So, you ultimately you need that reward. I think in the end, you want that level of approval of like, yeah, that worked out. That was a good glaze. So you want people to buy it and enjoy it.
Definitely.
So.
I just thought I'd bring these closer a second to show people. So this glaze here, I think adds interest because of the way it fires. So just the texture and everything plays along with the basketry. So that's why I like this green glaze. And then this blue glaze, a lot of people love blue. And this blue does the same thing, just a little bit more opaquely hidden. It's a little bit more hidden, the texture, the differences in the glaze. And again, so this one, you can see you could use it for flowers. One of our better clients, he has red tulips in this piece every single week. And as soon as they die, he replaces them. They're just so pretty. So anyway,
Nice.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
That's good to hear. I said that's always good to hear.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear when people use it and enjoy it. Yeah.
Definitely. I was just thinking, with being home more, have you been thinking about like a new project or a new way to combine the clay and the basketry, like a new form? Is anything bouncing around in your head that you're willing to talk about?
Boy, I've been thinking about weaving with other materials for a long time. I mean, if you think about it, you can weave with, you remember the old phone lines that were the multicolored wires?
Yep.
You could weave with that. You can weave, I mean, there's so many different materials you could weave with. An old friend of mine who I met years ago, he wove out of things like garden hoses and made these incredible structures, though, these beautiful, beautiful forms that were so fascinating that you didn't even realize you were looking at garden hoses. It was just such a beautiful, beautiful piece,
Yeah.
So I always love that when people can take a material that's so common and mix it into their artwork to the point where people don't even look at it and say, look, that's a garden hose. Look at that beautiful vase. I mean,
Right.
I love that kind of thing.
Yeah. That makes me think of a few years ago, God, maybe 10 years ago now. Have you ever met Ken Foster? He taught at Muskegon Community College for years. And I think he was an Alfred grad and a Cranbrook grad. And he got out of clay, started working in different mediums, but he was doing these massive wall hangings using those optic fibers.
Oh, wow.
And
No kidding.
You might look up his name and you might be able to find on Google because he had a couple of those.
Yeah. Oh, I love seeing the textures are just amazing.
Yeah.
That would be neat to see.
Yeah. What's your favorite tool?
My favorite tool?
Yeah.
I'm going to say the cordless drill. It seems to be the one that I use. It doesn't have anything to do with what I do here, but it seems to be the tool I use the most to do a lot of things.
I would agree. I use it in the studio and I use it in the house. So do you keep your cordless battery pack always charging?
I do.
Well, that's a concern.
And I always have a spare charge too.
Yep.
Well, that's the purpose of it, to be ready to go, right?
That's right. So have you, like as a potter, it's kind of drilled into me to always do a glaze test in every firing. And I stopped that practice mostly because for me, I've tried to narrow it down into how many glazes I use. But have you any, like, does that ever bounce around the back of your brain like, oh man, I should be testing and trying to do something different?
That was a hard point, a hard period to go. I think everybody goes through that. It's a hard point when you stop doing that.
Mhm.
And I stopped it a long time ago when I landed on these glazes. Um, yeah, I almost feel guilty about that. I haven't done it in quite a while. I've got loads of recipes. I guess if I had a gas kiln, it would be different. You've
Yeah.
got a gas kiln, right?
Yeah, I do. It's
Yeah.
firing right now.
Yeah, I knew you were firing, but I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember if it was a gas kiln. You
Yeah.
must be getting close to temp. You got to be up
We are
around
at
2000?
2070 at the moment.
You're getting up there.
I am.
Um, I have my when I went to college, I went to Adrian College, and my one of those young Alfred grads came out of there, young hot shot. He was doing that funk kind of ceramics, and yeah, to doing loads of glaze tests when I was in school. And I mean, I feel like I did a lot of it, but I think there's always room to learn, with that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And clay body,
I just wondered if you were thinking about, yeah, clay bodies is a whole nother thing.
yeah,
Sometimes, don't you feel like it'd be easier to be like, I hate to say it, like a painter or something, because we wouldn't have all of these different hats that you have to wear. You're a chemist, you're a potter, you have to be a mechanic
yeah,
because you have to be able to repair things. You also
mhm,
do basketry, so you've got to come up with the reeds and things that you use, and you have to be able to store all those. And then a chemist, like maybe I said that already,
yeah,
and somewhere along the line too, you're also a designer, and you have to learn rules of proportion and weight of a pot, and there's just so many hats that you wear as a clay artist and a basket maker. um, have you
yeah.
made any pieces lately that's only using one medium?
Well, that's interesting. I did make some porcelain plates a while ago. I haven't fired them yet, but I don't know why. I just kind of started thinking about those decals and making your own decals.
Mhm.
Um, and apparently, I think we've got some here in the studio. There's this printing paper, so you could basically draw what you want, and I'm not quite sure how it works, but it makes it basically you can print it on your home computer, and when you place it on the plate, it just becomes like a decal on it.
Right.
I don't know if you know about this technology, but
I
it
do.
amazes me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
So it was just sort of a fun. I haven't taken it anywhere yet, but it was just sort of a fun, goofy, sideline thing to do in the studio. As you're working on other stuff.
Yep.
Um, but and I think I have some old clear glazes and stuff that I would have used on it, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's something fun. Are they for you, the plates? Are the plates for you?
I'm sorry, Cindy. That broke up.
That's okay. Are the
Well, right now, yes.
okay. There.
Yeah,
Let's see. I was
yeah.
trying to think of what else we were going to talk about today. So who's your favorite? Oh wait, I'm gonna throw you a curveball. Who's your favorite musician? Who's your favorite
Oh,
musician?
wow. You know, well, because I'm a player and I'm a self-admitted music snob, so I won't even gloss that over. there's an artist out of Wisconsin. I believe he's out of Milwaukee area. His name is Willie Porter, and he's an acoustic guitar player. But he takes it to a whole nother level.
Hmm.
Listening to this man play is like, listen, if you didn't watch, you would think you were listening to a band.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah. So when I put his music into like Spotify and do like a Willie Porter channel, or into Pandora and do that, that brings up a plethora of basically, singer, songwriter, composers that just come out of the ether. So
Mhm.
it's I find those stations really, really fun to listen to. But and there's always standards thrown in, people who like maybe a Leo Kottke piece or something. But yeah, but that's where I kind of go to.
Okay, all right. So
How
then,
about you?
well, the easy one for me would just say Eric Clapton or Kev Mo. Those are
Oh,
my
two
two.
great, yeah. And that you could throw that right in there too. I'm totally in with that also. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, who is, all right, do you have a style of artistry outside of basketry? No, I'm going to leave it there. Who's your favorite artist? Artwork that really resonates with you?
Contemporary artist, or that doesn't matter?
I'm going to say it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say that I'm going to stick with. I've always kind of go back to the French, the Impressionists,
Mm.
and the reason I always go back there is those guys, those painters, man, they bucked the system. I mean, they were just so radical at that time. Today we see their work. You go see Monet's, water lilies, which is still to this day, but it's hard to get a sense of the history of how radical that was at the time. So that whole group of painters in the terms of art history, to me, I find completely fascinating. I just endlessly fascinating, really. And I'm sure the stories are even better if you could. It'd be so great if you could interview one of those guys from back then.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure
Yeah.
the stories would be amazing.
And
But that's pretty much, yeah. It's interestingly not. I mean, I could name numerous potters, numerous, you know, people along the line that have either influenced me or whose work I've loved, and I'm sure a lot of them are the same people whose work you've loved along the years. But yeah, I was thinking in terms of more of an artist movement, so to speak.
hmm Yeah, I know that when I went to the Art Institute a few years ago and saw Monet's show, um, I learned a lot, and it made me really same thing, become so impressed with them. And there's a Monet show that's at Art Institute again right now. So I've been trying to decide if I'm going to get down there and wear a mask and have a wander or not. But
Really,
yeah.
we haven't traveled anywhere, so I'm kind of I don't know. We're being very cautious still. So
Well,
yeah,
you and I are of the age group that we should.
I would. Thank you. I would think. I'll
We
take that as
are.
a compliment, actually.
I hate to say it, but we are. My kids are always reminding me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
seriously, I'm not that old. And they'll go, yes, you are.
I think just by the nature of the age, they consider us somewhat compromised. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Um, hey, do you ever do commission pieces?
Um, I have. Boy, that's a tough one. I have, but I try to shy away from it, and the reason is I have found more often than not that the vision that the client has is vastly different than the vision that I have. And you asked me earlier about do I do sketches or this and that? Yeah, I mean, I certainly have sketchbooks full of shapes and forms. I don't do them in great detail. I do them very quickly, almost like
A
what do they
doodle?
call the type of drawing?
A doodle?
Not quite doodle, where you're looking at the, like when you're looking at a model, for example, and you're not watching
Oh,
you're just going with your hand.
yep,
So you're looking at the lines in the model, but you're not looking at what you're doing. I think there's a name for that, and
yeah,
it escapes me. But it's kind of like that. You know what I mean?
I do.
So I don't know.
I do.
Okay.
'Cause I'm not a good drawer 2D wise either. And a lot of times, what I
Yeah.
put in my journal is for me just to remind me of an idea, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um,
Basically, I try to get enough of the outline of the piece and sort of the dimension, so I have a sense of if that particular shape will work or not. Because especially on the larger pieces, I don't want to spend a lot of time completing a piece and it's a vase after 20 minutes and saying that's a clunker and chucking it, as opposed to spending 2 or 3 days on it, you know?
right.
So I want to have a pretty clear picture of what I'm getting into beforehand. So oftentimes my drawings are like sort of what the impact would be of just the shape itself. I know what the shape is going to be filled in with. I know the colors and the handles or whatever already, but it's the basic impact of that shape.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, that's kind of where I go with it.
Yep. Yep. So the way I think about that, I think I hear you correctly, is like basically, like, is the belly going to be up high and come down, or is it going to be the other way? Is it come this way and go up?
Yes,
And then where is the widest point going to be on the piece? And that type of thing. And like, what are your clay pieces
exactly,
going to be?
exactly. And like I said in the beginning, obviously I made some serious clunkers. Oh man,
Mhm.
I made pieces that stood, 4 feet tall. That were, when I first made the piece, it was a beautiful level Grecian urn. And then over the period of 2 months, I watched it kind of start tipping and tilting. I was like, what's going on? Well, I realized there was no structure. There wasn't enough structure there to keep the form stable. So that's the beauty of what the clay provides. It gives you that inner structure. And it doesn't have to be clay. I mean, the reality is you could weave around probably a lot of different things. The difference with the clay is I can drill the holes, which I think you may be able to see that get
Right.
drilled in here that the spokes go into.
Yep.
Wouldn't be able to do that with like glass or something, I would guess. So that's the beauty, and of course you're well aware of how flexible clay is. I mean, just the fact that I can do all these different processes out of this one material,
Yeah.
it's pretty fascinating. I mean, everything from drilling complex holes, specific depths, to these crazy handles or whatever. It's the clay can do it all.
Yeah.
I've always loved the versatility of the clay.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
one thing that is so amazing, that when you look at all of our artists, like if you were to narrow it down to the clay artists, we're all using the same medium, and we all come at it from a different viewpoint, different styles, different, glazes, different, all kinds of things, but it's still the same medium. And so it's amazing. It's one of the reasons I love clay. I don't get bored with it.
And it's also another reason why potters always seem to get along because we all have this sort of affinity. I mean, we all work in the same materials and are quite generous with talking about it because we all have the same technical problems
Mhm.
along the path. I mean, I'm sure if you're having a problem with your glaze firing reaching temperature, there's someone to call or
Right.
someone to bounce that off of. We all have that because it's a community. We kind of work together on things like that. So, I mean, that's what I always loved about it. And then, all these wonderful little things like doing rock hoo firing with a bunch, they're sort of community centered, bring people together, doing wood firings. It's about bringing people together to do something I love that part of the whole Potter, I don't want to say mentality, but it's part of the Potter thing.
Yeah, yeah. And that's
So,
the one thing I can remember when I was first starting out. I saw a glaze that I loved at a show, and I got a hold of the artist, and she shared the glaze recipe with me. And I think in a lot of fine art communities, people don't share information the way potters do. And I know now, further on in my journey, the thing is you can give somebody a recipe, but your chemicals can be very different from their chemicals, just minutely, or how you mix the glaze or how you fire the glaze. And so it's going to look different from theirs. And so we all know that. So there's no problem with sharing a recipe. And it's going to be
Right.
different.
Absolutely, and of course that other person has already gone down their path a little bit. I'm zooming. Please. I'm at a meeting.
I told people in my house, don't do that. But sometimes they still ignore it.
Many times we can.
And that made me think about something else. I got a phone call from another potter girlfriend right before we started, and she was having, it wasn't a meltdown and it wasn't a hissy fit, but it was more just needed to talk to another potter. And it was, Cindy, my old electric kiln needs to do elements. It cost me $300. It's COVID. I'm not selling in shows. I have 2 galleries. How am I going to make enough mugs and pots to basically, I have to sell double that to break even for the cost of those elements. And now I haven't fed myself. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, I think everybody is worrying about that.
And then who's going to install those elements?
Oh, we do.
Well, obviously that's the electrician part that we all, I remember, gosh, when I started doing this, there were no photographers out there shooting people's artwork. There, and it was all that 35 millimeter stuff.
Yep.
Well, it was the same with the kilns. I mean, it was a totally different animal today. I mean, we can set everything digitally and walk away. I go to bed. I would never sleep during a firing, even if it was an electric firing. I first started out because there just were no safety guards, back then.
That's true.
But it's changed radically. But those elements, I know they're hugely expensive today, and replacing them is a major deal. I found that one company in Canada has reasonably priced ones. I can't remember it's Euclids or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. EUCLID.
And they can make elements. If you just know your kiln model, doesn't matter, the brand and model, they basically have the dimensions for, I think, pretty much all the kilns out there. So that's a help, but it's still, every so often it comes around. And the worst part is if you burn one out, just one element out, and everything else is working great, and then you replace that one, then everything's off balance from there.
Right.
And others start burning out. It's just better when they start going, rip off, go back to square one. I don't know. I wonder how many, I get about, I'm guessing 3-4 years out of mine, but I don't fire as much. I'm spending a lot of time weaving too. I'm sure you fire much more than I do.
Well, my electric kiln is actually almost the same size as my gas kiln. So I always used to tell people that you could put 4 of me in my gas kiln. So by doing that, because you can really cram a bisque kiln, I get, for every electric firing, I have 2 gas firings. So, I'm not firing my electric kiln all that much, and so I can run, I'll bet 5 or 6 years, maybe not that much, maybe 4 or 5 on my elements. And I'm firing at a lower level than you. I'm only firing to 1,800 degrees? No, less than that. No, 1,800 for bisque firing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right.
Let's see here.
Yeah, so I'm running my cone 9, so the stone, I bring it up as high as cone 9 for the glaze firing.
Oh, you are doing high firing, so.
Yeah, I'm still doing, I'm so old school. I mean, really, it's just, I was going to tell you, I have glazes, but a professor of mine, he's since passed, but he gave me his notebooks from Alfred, and he's got all these glazes in there that Daniel Rhodes gave him, and it's just so I look at that and I think, man, if I had a nice gas kiln, it would just be nice to test these,
Yeah.
just test them.
Yeah,
So,
they have a different quality. So I have to ask, and this won't mean anything to anybody else, is this green glaze, is it Val Cushing's green glaze? Is this VC green?
no,
Okay. Because I have one that's
no,
pretty similar to it that's Val.
It'd be interesting to compare the what's in the glaze. Mine's got three chemicals, or three materials, three more raw materials.
Four.
So we got, well, no, it's four because it's got the copper carbonate.
Yes.
I bet it's the same. I bet it's close to the same glaze. It was a faux ash glaze.
Yes. Yep.
And so early on, I learned, that when people ask you about the glaze, you're at a show or something, and they're like, "Wow, look at this glaze. What is it?" And I'd say to them, "Well, it's a faux ash glaze." They'd say, "What?"
Yeah.
And I realized I wouldn't say that anymore. I'm just telling them it's an ash glaze. So then I started thinking, well, but it's not an ash glaze. So then I started taking ash out of my wood stove and sieving it. So now in every batch, there's actually ash in my glaze. So it actually is an ash glaze. So
Okay. All right. All right.
But no, it was the original glaze formula was an old Ceramics Monthly that came out they were doing articles on learning to live without Albany slip, because when the mine closed, it was devastating to potters everywhere were scrambling. I don't know if you remember, this was quite a long time ago.
Yep.
But it was a big deal, because even in industry, I mean, the Albany slip was tried and proven, always worked. You could count on it no matter what. And so it became a staple, not only in studio potteries, but in industry. Like ceramic insulators, if you notice, they're dipped in Albany. Just things you wouldn't even normally think about in regular life, So, yeah. So that's where that came out of. But it's based on Alberta slip.
Yep.
And some whiting.
Yep.
And some ball clay, I believe, and then a percentage of copper carb.
Yeah, I think the difference with mine is, what is it? I'm drawing a blank. Stone, what's the one that's, I can think of it. It gets hard a lot of times, almost rock-like.
Cornwall stone?
Cornwall stone is in this one, yeah.
Oh, interesting. I have a bag of that.
We'll have to share recipes after we get off. Let's see here. So do you have any pieces that you just fell in love with that you haven't sold or are not available for sale?
No, but usually what happens is, well, I shouldn't say that. There's been one or two that I've set aside that there's a couple down on the shelf. I just kind of left them there.
Good.
I just, and it's interesting with this being my fourth body of work since I've professionally been in the business. I always save at least just one or two. I don't need any more, just one or two. What's interesting is there's this Facebook page for identifying pottery, pottery that people find at garage sales. I don't know if you're on it or not.
Yep.
Well, somebody down in Texas posted one of my pieces from, 40 years ago. I mean, it was embarrassing, And they wanted to know who the artist was. And of course I said, wow, that's me. So I told them a little bit about everything. So what they said to me is they said, well, if you would like to have the piece back, we can send it to you. It's not a problem. And I was very gracious. And I said, well, thanks, but no, I got enough. My pottery collection it's like your house. Everywhere you turn, there's a beautiful piece of pottery in some nook and cranny somewhere. Yep. You know how it is.
Yeah, so, I do. I do. Yeah.
So I have a couple pieces, of all the different phases. and that's it. You know, I just, because I want to fill it up with other people's. I don't want to look at mine anymore. I enjoy looking at other people's stuff, you know.
Right. So hold up your piece a second to show people how far you've come with this while we've talked. Okay. So you've
So
done
when we
2/3.
logged on, yeah, we were about right here when we logged on. So we've gone all the way up to there. And
Cool.
what happens is that the tighter it gets up here, I'm not there yet, but it actually starts to really slow down. You make really good mileage through here because the spokes are, I should hold it closer.
Oh,
You can
right.
see how far apart the spokes are in here.
Yeah.
Well, as they get tighter, especially when you get up into there, you've got to use
Oh, oh, okay, like a hook. Yep.
a hook. They sell them at Home Depot. They're scribes.
Oh,
And you actually have to go in and pick the little thing out on every one.
wow.
So that's the part that slows you down. When
Okay.
you start, it's not a problem because you can kind
Oh,
of
you
wing the
got
thing
room.
around.
Yep, you got room. Yep.
Yeah.
So you said you had some other pieces to maybe show us. Do you want to show us anything before we wrap this up?
Yeah, nothing real huge. I just figured while we were here in the studio, let's see. I got this guy. I
Oh, I love
just
that piece.
finished up. Yeah, this one worked, and I love the spot. You know, sometimes I wish I could just display them like that because I love the
Yeah.
spiral. So yeah, I've just been working on some of these, and I've been working on one of the smaller ovals. I don't have any of the big pieces up here that I'm working on right now. I'm just kind of working on a batch of small stuff. You can kind of see over here behind me. Here's, you know, this is what the piece I was working on started out looking like.
Nice.
You know, and you can see, I don't know if you can see the parts back here. Here's what a
Okay.
piece looks
Oh,
like
cool.
before it's even smoked up.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, so it's interesting. I probably got the parts there for, let me get this back on me. I probably have the parts over here for, I don't know, maybe 20 pieces, but it just takes up this tiny little space
Nice.
because
The baskets aren't there.
you can stack. I think you see stack
Yeah.
things up. The basket isn't in there yet. Well, it takes up 4 times that space when everything's done. So it's
Right.
kind of funny, but yeah,
Great.
that's kind of what I've been working on. Just these
Okay.
guys right now,
I love those.
doing
Yeah,
the twig thing.
yeah, I love those. So why don't we wrap it up? And what I thought I'd do is let everybody know. So Stephen is on our website, which is C gallery.com. And we have several pieces. If you saw something that Stephen was working on and you don't see it on our website, send us a message, call us, 616-935-7337. And we'll get a hold of Steve and we'll get that piece to you. I think you probably heard us talk about how it's a tough time for artists right now. And as we go into the holidays, let's think about supporting the artists and buying handmade. So Stephen, is great chatting with you. Hopefully we didn't bore people with talking too much clay, but it was a lot of fun. And I hope I see you in person soon. So see you later. Bye, Steve.
Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate your time. Love everybody at C2C Gallery.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye-bye.